Sitting Bull, a legendary leader of the Hunkpapa Lakota Sioux, stands as one of the most iconic figures in Native American history. His life, filled with resilience, struggle, and unyielding defense of his people's rights, represents a critical chapter in the broader story of Native American resistance to European and American encroachment. Born into a time of growing tension between indigenous peoples and the U.S. government, Sitting Bull navigated these challenges with profound spiritual and military leadership. One of the defining moments in his life, the Battle of Little Bighorn, became a symbol of Native American defiance. It was a confrontation that, for a moment in time, halted the relentless tide of westward expansion. Under his spiritual guidance, the united forces of the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho achieved a monumental victory over the U.S. Army, led by General George Custer. Though the battle would not reverse the fate awaiting indigenous peoples, it remains a testament to their bravery and Sitting Bull's remarkable leadership. This video explores the life of Sitting Bull, his rise to power, his pivotal role in the Battle of Little Bighorn, and the lasting legacy he left behind. Early life and formation of Sitting Bull's character. Sitting Bull was born around 1831 as Tatanka Iotake in the Hunkpapa Lakota Sioux tribe, a people deeply rooted in the Great Plains of present-day South Dakota. The Lakota, part of the larger Sioux nation, were known for their fierce independence and skilled warrior culture. From a young age, Sitting Bull was shaped by this world of tribal honor, warfare, and reverence for the natural world. He grew up during a time when the pressure from American settlers was steadily increasing, forcing Native Americans into confrontations to protect their lands and way of life. As a boy, Sitting Bull was known for his calm demeanor and deep sense of purpose, even earning the nickname Slow because of his measured, thoughtful approach to challenges. This thoughtful nature, however, should not be mistaken for weakness. His bravery was demonstrated early in life when at age 14 he led his first successful raid against a rival Crow warrior, an act that solidified his place as a respected member of his tribe. Sitting Bull's youth was filled with lessons of survival, spiritual guidance, and leadership, which were imparted to him by his elders. He learned the skills of hunting, horse riding, and most importantly, the responsibilities of a Lakota leader, to protect his people and uphold their traditions. As a young warrior, he was involved in multiple skirmishes with enemy tribes, sharpening his tactical acumen and nurturing a sense of deep loyalty to his people. By the time he reached adulthood, Sitting Bull had earned the respect of his tribe, not just as a warrior, but as a spiritual guide who could foresee events and lead his people both in times of peace and war. Sitting Bull as a spiritual and military leader. Sitting Bull's leadership transcended the battlefield. Unlike many other Native American leaders, he was revered as a holy man with a deep connection to the spiritual world. This connection was the foundation of his leadership. His visions and prayers guided not only his decisions, but also inspired others to follow him. It was his vision, after all, that would foretell the defeat of General Custer at Little Bighorn, a vision that would galvanize his people during one of their most critical battles. As the Lakota faced increasing pressure from white settlers encroaching on their lands, particularly following the discovery of gold in the Black Hills, Sitting Bull emerged as a key figure in rallying various Sioux bands and other native tribes. His refusal to sign treaties that ceded Lakota land to the U.S. government showcased his resolve and strategic understanding of the broader picture. He recognized that surrendering their lands meant the end of their way of life. Throughout the 1860s and 1870s, Sitting Bull played a pivotal role in organizing resistance against U.S. expansion. His leadership was not solely based on military might, but on his ability to unify various factions of the Sioux and other tribes. This was no small feat, as the tribes often had internal rivalries and differing interests. Yet, Sitting Bull's spiritual and charismatic leadership provided a common cause: resistance against the destruction of their homeland. His decision to reject any negotiations with the U.S. government in favor of protecting tribal sovereignty made him a symbol of defiance. As other leaders wavered or made concessions, Sitting Bull remained steadfast, willing to face the might of the U.S. Army rather than submit. His unshakable resolve earned him the unwavering loyalty of his people and set the stage for the defining battle of his leadership. Historical context leading to the Battle of Little Bighorn. The Battle of Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's Last Stand, was not a spontaneous event, but the culmination of years of escalating tensions between Native American tribes and the U.S. government. By the mid-1870s, relations had deteriorated drastically. The U.S. government's westward expansion policy, along with the discovery of gold in the Black Hills, a region sacred to the Lakota, exacerbated tensions. In 1868, the Treaty of Fort Laramie had guaranteed the Lakota ownership of the Black Hills, but this treaty was soon violated by the flood of miners looking to strike it rich. The U.S. government, eager to appease settlers and expand its control over the region, attempted to purchase the Black Hills. Sitting Bull and many other Sioux leaders refused. They knew that selling the Black Hills would mark the end of their autonomy and cultural heritage. In response to Sitting Bull's defiance and that of other tribal leaders, the U.S. government issued an ultimatum. All Sioux had to report to reservations by the end of January 1876 or be considered hostile. Sitting Bull, along with his allies Crazy Horse and Gall, refused to submit. Instead, they began to prepare for battle. As tensions mounted, thousands of native warriors from various tribes, including the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho, united under the leadership of Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. This unprecedented unity among the tribes was one of the factors that led to their success at Little Bighorn. With Sitting Bull's spiritual guidance and the tactical prowess of warriors like Crazy Horse, the stage was set for a confrontation that would go down in history. Sitting Bull's role in the Battle of Little Bighorn. While Sitting Bull did not serve as the battlefield commander during the Battle of Little Bighorn, his role as a spiritual and unifying leader was instrumental in the Native American victory. Prior to the battle, Sitting Bull had a vision during a sun dance ceremony where he saw U.S. soldiers falling like grasshoppers in the field. This vision was taken as a divine promise of victory, instilling confidence in his warriors. It was this prophetic vision that convinced the native forces to stand their ground and fight the advancing U.S. Army. On June 25, 1876, under General George Custer's leadership, the 7th Cavalry of the U.S. Army attempted a surprise attack on the native encampment along the Little Bighorn River. However, they were vastly outnumbered. Custer, who grossly underestimated the number of native warriors, divided his forces into 3 columns, believing that his 600 soldiers would be enough to handle the tribes. The battle unfolded rapidly, with native warriors overwhelming Custer's troops. Crazy Horse led the charge, while Sitting Bull's influence and spiritual guidance remained crucial in maintaining the unity and morale of the native forces. Although Sitting Bull was not directly engaged in combat, his presence and spiritual leadership loomed large. His vision of victory had given his people the confidence they needed to stand up against the overwhelming force of the U.S. Army. Custer and his men were utterly defeated. In a matter of hours, over 250 U.S. soldiers, including Custer himself, were killed. The native victory at Little Bighorn was stunning, sending shockwaves throughout the United States. However, while the battle was a significant victory for the Native Americans, it would also bring about swift retribution from the U.S. government. In the aftermath of Little Bighorn, Sitting Bull's role as a spiritual leader was further solidified. The victory confirmed his status as a visionary and protector of his people, though he knew that more challenging times were ahead. Consequences of the battle and Sitting Bull's final years. Despite the overwhelming victory at Little Bighorn, the U.S. government's retaliation was swift and severe. In the months and years following the battle, the U.S. military launched a relentless campaign to subdue the Sioux and other resistant tribes. The defeat at Little Bighorn had embarrassed the government and heightened public demand for the pacification of the Native American tribes. Sitting Bull, recognizing the futility of continued resistance in the face of overwhelming U.S. forces, led his people north into Canada. For 4 years, they lived in exile, avoiding U.S. military campaigns. However, life in Canada was harsh, and the Canadian government offered little assistance. Over time, with resources dwindling and his people suffering from hunger, Sitting Bull made the difficult decision to return to the United States. In 1881, Sitting Bull and his followers surrendered to the U.S. government. Although he had been a symbol of defiance, Sitting Bull's surrender was a pragmatic decision aimed at ensuring the survival of his people. He was held as a prisoner of war before being moved to the Standing Rock Reservation, where he lived under the watchful eye of U.S. authorities. Even in his later years, Sitting Bull continued to be a prominent figure. He joined Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show for a brief period, using the opportunity to earn money for his people and raise awareness of Native American struggles. Despite his efforts to adapt to this new reality, Sitting Bull remained a staunch defender of Native sovereignty and cultural traditions. In 1890, amid growing unrest and the rise of the Ghost Dance movement, a religious movement that promised the return of native lands and the removal of white settlers, Sitting Bull was viewed by U.S. authorities as a potential threat. On December 15, 1890, he was shot and killed by Indian police working for the U.S. government during an attempt to arrest him. His death marked the end of an era of Native resistance. Sitting Bull's legacy is one of courage, spiritual leadership, and unwavering dedication to his people. Throughout his life, he stood as a symbol of resistance against U.S. policies that sought to eradicate Native American culture and sovereignty. His leadership during the Battle of Little Bighorn remains one of the most celebrated examples of Native American resistance, not only for the victory it represented, but for the unity and strength it demonstrated. Sitting Bull's refusal to compromise on the rights of his people, even in the face of overwhelming odds, continues to inspire Native American communities today. His spiritual leadership and prophetic visions, which guided his people in battle and in life, reinforced his status as a holy man who connected the physical and spiritual worlds. The Battle of Little Bighorn, in particular, is often remembered as a moment of triumph for Native American resistance, even though it was followed by devastating consequences. Sitting Bull's role in this victory, both as a leader and as a spiritual guide, solidified his place in history as one of the most important Native American leaders of the 19th century. Today, Sitting Bull is remembered not only in Native American communities, but also in broader American history. Monuments, books, and films continue to honor his life and legacy. His story serves as a reminder of the enduring strength and resilience of indigenous peoples in the face of colonization and cultural suppression. Sitting Bull's life was marked by a deep commitment to his people, their land, and their way of life. As a leader, he embodied both spiritual and military wisdom, guiding his people through some of the most challenging periods in Native American history. His role in the Battle of Little Bighorn was not merely that of a war leader, but that of a spiritual guide, whose visions and strength inspired his people to fight for their survival. Though the battle was a significant victory, Sitting Bull understood that the larger war for Native sovereignty and cultural survival was far from over. His refusal to compromise, even in the face of insurmountable odds, speaks to his extraordinary leadership and dedication. Sitting Bull's legacy lives on, not only in the history books, but also in the ongoing struggles for indigenous rights and recognition. He remains a symbol of resistance, courage, and the enduring fight for justice for Native peoples. The lessons from his life and the Battle of Little Bighorn continue to resonate, reminding us of the importance of cultural preservation and the right to self-determination. In remembering Sitting Bull, we honor a leader who fought not just for his people, but for the preservation of a way of life that was sacred to him and his ancestors.